Give me a second. No. Okay. Um, Arch Morgan. Waiting. Finding it back as well. 3,530 people there over the 2 days. So we had the fireworks on the Friday evening, and the day festivities on the 1st. I was going to bring up my list here. But we have a number of thank yous. I just wanted to reiterate special thank you to Councillor Lockie for coordinating the games. We had kids and adult games on Canada Day. And then thank you to the Lions Club, IOD, Optimist Club, Kinsman Club, the firefighters, Thames Center and Playground staff, volunteers, all of the bands and our new audio guys, and all of the local businesses that contributed prizes. That was Frozen Cow, Milk Pond Tap and Grill, Town and Country Pizza, Bitter Herb, and the Lions Club Barbecue. So thanks for everyone that attended.
Thank you, Councillor Crockett. Is there any Deputy Mayor Smithers?
So I wasn't sure when on the agenda we were going to do these announcements. I guess it makes sense to add the announcement section on the agenda. Just building on what Councillor Heenan had indicated, I think we do really need to recognize all of the hard work that the committee members did with respect to the Pride event. They really had probably 1 to 2 months lead time to get that celebration off the ground, and I think they did a tremendous job. And I'm super excited to see what they can do next year, given the fact that we'll have more time to plan that. I do want to, if I can, just acknowledge the committee members that were participated and did some tremendous work to pull it off. It's Shauna Ray, she led the committee, Michelle Coghlan, Katie Delangelo, Amanda Saunders, Grant Weaver, Jesse Ferguson, Kelly Elliott, Laura Campbell, and Darla Delbert Stratton. So thanks again to all of those committee members, tons of sponsors. Good day. Too bad we couldn't have a bit more people out, but again, can't wait to see what's going to happen in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other announcements before we move on? I think we covered them all. Okay. All right. I'd like to move to item number 5 on the agenda, which is a presentation of climate crisis, building municipal resilience and taking action, presented by Patty Kemp.
Thank
Go
you very
ahead.
much.
You're ready.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, I think so.
Excellent. Okay. I've just, another participant is sharing. Could I please, actually, could I share from my screen, please?
Unfortunately, Patty, that's not going to be able to work the way it's set up, the way our Zoom is set up.
Okay, hang on. I think, okay. Sorry. I thought that's how we agreed we would do it, was that I was going to, because I have changed some of my slides. Could I just have the control to share it on Zoom just for this short period?
Well, I'll be able to give you that.
Okay. All right. Okay, then I will hopefully tell you when I'm sharing, and I don't think going to be able to quite see what I'm sharing while I'm talking. So hopefully it goes smoothly.
Wait, just before you start, we can't see your screen. We don't have the ability to give you the ability to share. So
Okay.
we're sharing what's on what you had given us before.
Yes. Okay. So you should be looking at the main screen where you can see the green and white screen with Climate Reality Project. So thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. Hopefully this goes smoothly without any hitches. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the need for the municipality to develop a climate action plan and an adaptation plan. And hopefully by the end of the presentation, you're going to see that these are the most crucial steps the municipality needs to take for preparing for the future and for the present. So I'll ask you to please carry on to the next slide. Nope, you'll need to go back up a slide, please. Okay, so you all know me. I'm Patty Kemp. I'm a volunteer climate reality leader. I was virtually trained in 2020 by former US Vice President Al Gore. And I like to start off my presentations talking about why I'm worried about the climate crisis. And for me, it's because of my daughter. You can see her here skating with my dad. They both love to skate on our pond together. And I think that's part of our Canadian heritage. But every year, our winter here in southwestern Ontario is getting shorter and shorter, and there are less days when the pond is frozen for skating. And now her soccer games are being canceled because of wildfire smoke. So the effects of climate change are visible right here, right now, and I can see climate change happening in my immediate environment. It's affecting my child, and it really upsets me. And it affects, the effects of climate change are being felt by people all over the world. The next slide, if you scroll down, is an image that reminds us that we all share the same home. The following slide talks about when we talk about the climate crisis, there's only 3 questions remaining. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? We're going to look at them one by one. The first is, must we change? Scroll along, please. And again, So we must. I'm going to cover the basic science of global warming very quickly. And unfortunately, because I'm not using my actual PowerPoint presentation, some of my very good animations aren't going to show up properly. If you do have more questions about this, you can contact me after the presentation. This is the thin shell of atmosphere surrounding our planet. Next slide, please. Energy comes from the sun in the form of light radiation. Next. Slide, please. Okay, go back up again. You can leave it on this one. It's not going to show you as we take you through that, but the energy is absorbed by the earth and it warms the earth. Some of that energy is re-radiated from the earth in the form of heat. And because of the natural layer of greenhouse gases, some of that heat is trapped in the atmosphere. And that's a very good thing because it's kept our planet at a stable temperature. But we're thickening this natural greenhouse gas layer. And as it gets thicker, more of the outgoing heat is trapped. And that's what's caused the climate crisis. So why is it getting thicker? Next slide, please. It's getting thicker because we're spewing 162 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into it every day, treating it like an open sewer. Next slide, please. There's many sources of man-made global warming pollution, but the main one is the burning of fossil fuels, as you can see from the pie chart. Next slide, please. This significantly increased after World War II. And if you look in the top right corner of the slide, you can see that emissions dropped during the pandemic by 6%, but it went back up by 7% after. The next slide, please. And this one isn't probably going to look quite as good, but this is a look at CO2 in the historical perspective. This graph goes back 800,000 years, and it shows each of the ice ages throughout that time. Next slide, please. Carbon dioxide and temperature go up and down together. Throughout the historical record, the concentration of carbon dioxide has never gone above 300 parts per million. Next slide, please. Now, you can see from this that in 2013, we crossed 400 parts per million. In May, we reached 424 parts per million, which is over 50% higher than at the start of the Industrial Revolution in the late 18th century. And we're now at levels that haven't been seen in at least 3 million years and likely more than 20 million. And the next slide. In the next 40 years, unless we make some dramatic changes, this is where the concentration of carbon dioxide will be. And unfortunately, I don't think you can see that very well from your slide, but it well exceeds anything we've been at. The next slide shows that 20 of the 21 hottest years ever measured since 2002 have occurred in the last 20 years, and the 8 hottest years of all were the last 8 years. And this slide actually doesn't include 2022, which was the 6th hottest year on record. Next slide, please. And again, this is another one that's not going to everything, but I'll tell you, back up, please, thanks. On a global basis, more than 90% of all the extra heat energy trapped by our atmosphere is going into the oceans. This extra heat disrupts the water cycle. So if you can picture in your mind what's happening here, the amount of water vapor that evaporates off the oceans increases as oceans warm. That water vapor is carried over the land, and then it often falls in much bigger precipitation events, creating intense heavy rain. When the land can't absorb all the water that falls in these larger storms and downpours, that's when we see floods and mudslides. Next slide, please. Large-scale flooding has become a huge problem. And look at what just happened in Vermont. In the past couple of years, Middlesex County has been under a state of emergency for flooding. Thames Centre has 2 branches of the Thames River, with 1 branch running right through Dorchester. The Wye Creek runs through Thorndale. That might seem like a small creek, but back in the spring, we had some heavy rainfall, and a new resident in one of the nearby subdivisions asked if it was normal to see the creek at her backyard. So if we get 2 months worth of rain in 2 days, like Vermont just did, imagine where that creek's going to be. And of course, significant flooding and heavy rainfall can negatively impact farmers if they can't get on the land to plant or it ruins their crops. And urban planning has an impact on flooding. Every time a municipality expands paved areas like sidewalks and parking lots by 1 percentage point, the annual flood magnitude in nearby waterways increases by 3.3%. Next slide, please. I'll keep going, please. Next slide. The same extra heat that causes these rainfall events and floods also causes the droughts by sucking the moisture out of the topsoil, so the droughts take place more quickly. The groundwater is used up faster. That's a big concern for Thames Centre because you rely on groundwater aquifers for your drinking water. Next slide, please. Infrastructure is damaged by these climate-related events. The cost begins to add up, especially for municipalities. We're going to jump past the next slide. Actually, no, that one didn't line up. Sorry, this is the infrastructure slide. So you can take a quick look at all the different types of infrastructure that can be impacted by extreme weather. Next slide, please. And this is a good example of impact on infrastructure. Existing water management infrastructure wasn't designed for these unpredictable events. Their efficiency and resiliency are at risk. And a report from the Financial Accountability Office of Ontario says that severe weather will cost municipalities millions of dollars if local governments don't spend the money now to keep aging infrastructure in a good state of repair. It says the cost of maintaining infrastructure will increase by $6.2 billion by 2030, given extreme rainfall. So the next slide just says, do we have to change? Yes, we do. Oh, carry on, please. The next slide after that is about the second question. Can we change? And carry on, please. We do have the solutions at hand. Wind and solar energy production has surged and costs are dropping dramatically, and that's changing the energy production landscape. I'll have you skip through the next couple of slides, please. Yeah, you can keep going. Keep going. And I just had wanted to tighten up the presentation a bit, so keep going. Next one. Lovely. There we go. So, nope, back one, please. Thank you. Building retrofits are a significant area of energy efficiency. I want to draw your attention to this because when you retrofit existing buildings, you reduce the cost of operating the building, you reduce pollution, and you create local jobs. It's a $1 trillion new industry and one that municipalities should consider. I'm also going to talk about a slide we just went by because they're out of order, unfortunately. I want to draw your attention to nature-based solutions. These are very important for the municipality to think about because we'll use wetlands for an example. Wetlands regulate, capture, and store greenhouse gases in the ground, and they buffer extreme events like storms and floods. They prevent erosion, they manage drinking. So areas like the Dorchester Swamp and the Mill Pond are central to the municipality's climate resiliency and should be treated as core infrastructure. So it's extremely important that these areas are recognized, well managed, protected, and expanded. Next slide, please. So if we want to cut global emissions in half within the next 7 years, we've got everything we need. We know how to do it and we can do it. We just need to get over the resistance and start doing it. And the next slide, please. This is a slide with some really good news. Once we reach true net zero emissions of climate pollution, temperatures in the world will stop going up with a lag time of as little as 3 to 5 years. And the next slide, please. Even better, if we stay at true net zero, then half of all human-caused emissions will fall out of the atmosphere in as little as 25 to 30 years. So we can solve this situation, and it's going to improve pretty quickly. So yes, we can change, and I'll get you to skip ahead to another slide. Next one. The third question is really the important one, and it's why I'm speaking to you today. So I'll ask you to carry on to the next slide, please. Change is definitely happening at the municipal level, like this example from neighboring Middlesex Centre. But the first thing Thames Centre needs is to develop 2 plans, a climate action plan and an adaptation plan. So I'll ask you to go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So what is a climate adaptation plan? It's a document that sets out the municipality's emissions targets, and it identifies a specific pathway for how those targets will be achieved. Most large and medium-sized municipalities already have them, but not all plans are created equal. A strong plan should present detailed policies with timelines attached and identify which departments are responsible for which pieces. There needs to be adequate funding and staffing. And to ensure accountability to the plan, the municipality needs to produce regular public progress reports, identify what progress has been made and where more resources might be needed. So the primary goal of a climate action plan is to reduce municipal emissions. And this presentation so far explained to you why you need to do that. We talk a lot about adaptation and mitigation when it comes to climate change, and think of this as your mitigation plan. Next slide, please. And then you need an adaptation plan. So an adaptation plan addresses how the municipality will respond to the impacts of climate change. So this is how you're going to prepare to protect your residents from those impacts. It needs to be based on climate science projections. So you need to obtain a vulnerability and risk assessment. This is how you identify what's going to happen here. The big impacts are going to be flooding, extreme temperatures, droughts, and severe weather events like big storms, heavy rains, high winds. This is how you ensure our food system and our local infrastructure are resilient. Next slide, please. Will this really help us? Well, hopefully you recall the email I sent you about the National Climate League standings a couple of months ago. In 2021, we did really well in the household waste category. In 2022, we didn't do so well in that category, but we did well in residential water usage. And we can talk about why we had those results, but we really don't have a concrete answer. These plans will help you and show you how to improve. According to that FAO report I mentioned, it will ultimately be cheaper for the municipality to prepare infrastructure up front, because that will avoid climate-related costs and accelerated deterioration. We're already seeing the impacts now. Just look at Vermont and remember the comment about the wide creek in the woman's backyard. There's a lot of things that you can do. You've already started developing a tree planting program, and that can be used to mitigate flood risk and combat heat waves. You can reduce urban runoff by increasing green infrastructure and identifying where you can use permeable surfaces instead of pavement. You can use your building code to increase passive cooling and implement green development standards. So there's lots of ideas out there, and not all of them cost a lot. And you can either lead or play catch up. So for instance, society is already in the process of electrifying everything. That change is happening whether people like it or not. And municipalities should be thinking now about local green energy generation as we move to a distributed energy system. And you need to integrate climate change adaptation and mitigation into overall municipal decision-making. So both of these plans need to be embedded in the official plan. Okay, I'll have you go on to another slide, please. So how do you start? Oh, you don't have to redesign the wheel. You should join the Partners for Climate Protection program. You can see the link there. It receives funding from ICLEI, the Local Governments for Sustainability Canada, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. The PCP program features a five-step milestone framework, and it guides you as you take action against climate change by reducing emissions in your municipalities. So membership is free. It gives you access to tools, networking venues, events, case studies, other informational resources. And members also have access to a PCP secretariat that offers coaching and technical assistance support. The next one mentioned there is the Building Adaptive and Resilient Communities program, again offered by ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability Canada, and it offers best practices in adaptation planning. And the federal government is also taking some leadership with the new National Adaptation Strategy. It was unveiled at the end of 2022, and it will provide additional funding for municipalities to implement adaptation projects. Next slide.
If I could just ask at this moment, we're about 15 minutes in. I'm just thinking of timing.
Absolutely. I have 4 slides left, but if you'd like me to stop that, I can now with just a couple of points to make.
Well, let's go ahead with your points, and then we'll open it up to council for any questions that they may have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next slide you can read on your own. But what I would like to say is that I know you're developing an environmental action committee, which is fantastic, but developing a climate action plan and adaptation plan is not something you should get into a committee. It's something the municipality produces. And I'll leave you with a thought from Bill McGibbon. He says winning slowly is the same as losing. So you really need to start work on this now. The next slide is a quote from Jane Goodall, which I'll also let you read in your own time. But I do want to say, since you're elected officials for Thames Centre, you have the capacity to create these plans, to make a motion, to direct the municipality to create them, and you can make a really big difference. The last couple of slides, I round out talking about how important it is for my child and all of our children to have a future that we can be proud of. And I would invite you to contact me on my email address, which was on the last slide, if you have any questions, if we've run out of time now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this point then, I'll ask if there are any questions from members of council for Ms. Kim. Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
Thanks, Patty, so much for that presentation. I do understand the challenge of this situation, and I understand that municipalities do have a role to play, absolutely, and I understand the urgency that we need to kind of take action today so that we can prevent any further damage. I do support the idea in principle, but I really do kind of want to see that strategic plan from the municipality in place first. I don't want to suppose what's going to be in the strategic plan, but I'm assuming there's going to be something with respect to sustainable energy and sustainable, finances, that type of thing. So, because I want to make sure that we do it in a well-planned and methodical way. Again, understand the urgency. I understand that. I don't believe that our strategic plan is going to be that far off. I'm assuming it's going to happen sometime, maybe this fall or later on this year. So, again, I thank you. I do support the initiative. Again, I want to make sure we do it in a thoughtful way. And that's why I'll wait and see what the strategic plan comes out with, because I'm absolutely positive that there'll be something in there about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has questions on this item? Councillor Heyman.
Thank you, Patty, for bringing this information forward to us. I think it's really great to have the resources that you put forward. I know that it's a lot easier to get things done when you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and especially being part of a network of municipalities who have similar opinions. I know the City of London is part of the Green Economies Network, and I think there are a couple different associations we could pursue that would assist us in this journey. And just on a positive note, this council is initiating a study on a community improvement plan, and one of the points of interest is actually looking at green building standards and how we can incentivize that through a community improvement plan. So I think we are making small steps, and you got to walk before you run, but I think we're getting close to running. So, and it looks like we have a motion later on that's really going to help us with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, then thank you very much, Ms. Kemp. We appreciate the presentation. So at this point, I'd like a mover and a seconder to receive the information, the report for information, and be referred to the newly created Environmental Advisory Committee, which will appear later on our agenda. Councillor Lockie and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? All right, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is grant match funding strategies. Michelle Trump, Senior Director of Business Development. She's coming in on Zoom. Okay, all right then.
Hello, thank you for having me join tonight. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I believe I was let known that my slideshow would be prompted for me as well. So really appreciate your time and this opportunity to show you the value we bring with respect to maximizing government grants and funding. So just please move on to the next slide. A little bit of background about me. I have been in grant match for over 10 years and dealing almost exclusively in the municipal sector. So I have extensive experience in the intricate workings of the municipality and their success. Next slide, please. Just by way of an agenda, I'll do a brief introduction to who we are at Grant Match and what that means to you. Also talk about our proactive funding strategy, which is key to our municipal client success. The Grant Match platform, our robust analytics tool that is unique to us. I'll speak to a client success story, and I'll talk about our success fee model. Next slide, please. So at Grant Match, we work with hundreds of municipalities right across the country, and we have been around for over 25 years now. We had a legacy practice in sales tax recovery, but for about the last 12 years have focused almost exclusively on direct funding programs. We pride ourselves on being powered by big data and AI, but also on our relationships that we build in our client base. We know the municipal sector intimately, and we customize and tailor our style to your individual workings that make you a success. Next slide, please. So our mission is to resolve global challenges by connecting clients to funding. We recognize there's challenges out there. It's public information, but exists on hundreds and hundreds of separate links. I'm sure you've all experienced finding out about programs when the deadline is tight timing. Our goal is to educate, advise, and assist you so that you're always ahead of the curve. You know well in advance, you have an entire team of us. There are 50 of us in the organization going through your single point of contact. So we're bringing all that experience and expertise to every opportunity and put you at the forefront, which actually acts as a catalyst to many of your projects. So our innovation simplifies the grant process and enables you to capture every dollar of government funding possible. Next slide, please. So our platform, as I mentioned, is unique to us. It's the only comprehensive analytics tool that allows us to streamline the vast array of complicated information out there so that we lay out your projects and have them in lockstep as these programs come available over time. So we can be identifying and selecting high probability funds that you might not be aware of. And as well, we go on to do the full proposal development. Next slide, please. So in the background, there is constant research going on. Our intellectual horsepower is put into our tool as well. And we do elements like pulling historical approvals. We know what projects are being approved for what funds and geographies. So all of that is the engine that is powering each and every opportunity and each and every proposal. Identification and selection is equally as important as proposal development, getting the right program for the right project for your high probability of success. When we go on to secure funding, I want to highlight that you stay in full control of what we execute on, and only for our municipal sector, we allow you to pick and choose. So we really are here to augment what you're doing, not displace it. So even if we identify a particular grant, you might say we're okay to go ahead on that. But we're there to secure the ones that are on a tight time crunch, you don't have the resources, or are exceedingly complex and technical, which they have become much more so lately. Next slide, please. So to give you a sense of how robust our platform is, in our history, we've searched over 380,000 companies and organizations, $3.3 trillion in government funding. At any given time, there is about $32 billion in government funding. As I mentioned, the historical grant approval records. So this gives us incredible insight into what it takes to be successful in a grant application. And now we're upwards over 5,000 programs searched on a daily basis that we're bringing to your attention. So both federally, provincially, and some private foundation funds. And so no matter what you're doing in terms of seeking government funding, there's always room for improvement. Next slide, please. So our success rates, the government has measured that on average across all programs, all organizations, the average success rate for applying on your own is about 25%. Straight out of the gate on an application basis, we're at 75% approval ratings on average. So you're tripling your chances. When you work with us over time, and we can be very strategic with our approach, we do elements like stacking and pairing, where we're adding more than one program to offset the cost of a project. We're in the 94% range of success. Next slide, please. So as an example, we have City of Kawartha Lakes, which is our longest standing municipal client. Gives you an example of the buckets of money we pull from. We cast an all-encompassing net of infrastructure, environmental, socioeconomic, and recreation. So this gives you a sense of where we're doing a green municipal fund. That program reoccurs over time. These programs become more abundant as we've seen over time, but they're exceedingly hard to get approvals. The Low Carbon Innovation Fund as another example. And it's for a carbon neutral affordable housing project. Right now, we're looking at the Housing Accelerator Fund for housing projects as an example, and the Rural Economic Development Fund, which occurs over time. I do want to make mention briefly of the Green and Inclusive Community Building Fund that has had 2 intakes. We've been extremely successful, but it showcases our value that we bring. You had to purchase the RET software to measure efficiencies of the building and hire an engineering firm to execute on all that. And we provided that all at a success or performance fee base with all the risk bearing on us. So just gives you a sense of how strategically we work. Next slide, please. So a bit of a broad brush sampling of some of the municipalities we work with. We do work with over 50 in Ontario, and I'm happy to provide references. I think one of the most powerful things is that municipalities are collaborative and share best practices. There is nothing more powerful than speaking to one of your neighbors about exactly the experience they have in working with us and what success that has brought them. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we cover the full gamut. So no stone is left unturned, and you're always ahead of the curve in terms of all these different areas of funding that is available. Next slide, please. So lastly, all of these deliverables that I've spoke of are strictly success or performance fee based. So there is no risk or upfront cost to you. You only ever pay us as we're successful in gaining these monies for you that you otherwise wouldn't have had. So David Barrick has been so kind to bring me here today, and I will follow through with him on your thoughts, but are there any questions at this time?
So council, we can open it up here. Thanks very much, Michelle. Councillor Lockie, you have a question?
Yeah, through your worship, to Michelle, thank you for the presentation. Just a few questions. With respect to the length of the contract, are we tied in for a certain term with you if we agree to use your services?
Great question. We do put in the contract. We ask for a 2-year term because these tend to be long-term projects. However, I will note that also in the contract, it is able to be canceled by 30 days written notice. So, and we are amenable if you want to, trial that on a 1-year basis. We also don't have any exclusivity. And as well, we let you pick and choose. So, it's to enhance what you're doing, not displace it. So we're working alongside of you, but all of those options are available.
My next question is, do you provide any assistance with post-grant audit reviews?
Sorry, I missed the last part. What was that?
Well, a lot of times when we receive grants, there could be audits. Do you assist with that part, or is that to staff?
No, actually, great question and a really big point of value. Included entirely in our contingency fee is the first round of audit compliance, and that is where the lion's share occurs. That's where most of the legwork is. In longer term projects, there will be subsequent reviews. However, we've laid out by then a nice template for you to proceed with those on your own, or we are available for those subsequent reviews at a significantly reduced hourly rate of $100 an hour if you so choose.
And then my last question is with respect to the payment, is it payable when we actually get the cash from the grant or when it is approved?
So it is 75% payable upon approval with a 25% holdback when you receive the cash. However, I will tell you, and thank you for asking that question and pointing it out, we are amenable, the partners are amenable to editing that, negotiating that element of the agreement, and you can ask for 100% on receipt of funds. The only reason we put it in there that way is sometimes we obviously bear all the risk. And when we receive an approval, we've obviously done our work successfully for you. In a very rare few situations, we've had people delay and it goes off into, off the radar. And that's why we put that in our original contract. However, I wanted to put forward those other options for you.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions for Michelle, but I do have some questions for CEO Barrett, but I'll leave it to the other councillors to ask questions first.
Okay, great.
Thank you. So does anyone else? Councillor Heeman.
Just to clarify, is the 10% or 5% written into the project, or does that have to be municipal funds?
Yes, actually, great point to mention. The funds do not allow for our fees as part of the project funding. So you do have to budget for them. But as I hope I've highlighted strongly, we are bringing incremental opportunity to the table. So what our clients have found is that when you are now receiving 90% of hundreds of thousands of dollars or 95% of millions, that you were previously receiving 0% of that bucket, it becomes pretty easy case to make to budget for our fees.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you for that.
Some good questions here tonight.
Great questions. That's what I was telling David, I love to be here live. There's nothing more powerful than having your questions answered in person.
Okay, thank you. So if there are no other questions, Councillor Heeman, did you have one? Or
I did have a question for CEO Barrett. So I know that, like, I think using the use of consultants is excellent because they have the expertise. But I do know that there are a lot of experts in the field as well. Have we received any other proposals?
So through the mayor, thank you for the question. Since I've been here, this is the first correspondence that I've received from Grant Match or any other like organization. However, I have been having the dialogue with Grant Match through Michelle in terms of some flexibility. I believe we can attain that as reference with respect to a one year with a possible paper renewal, but as well as referenced, it's not the only one that we can use. In other words, staff can continue to make those applications on its own. The corporation has the ability to use another firm should they wish. So there is that flexibility built in, which I am comfortable with. And that's why I've asked Grant Match to make a presentation to assist in council's decision making as well.
If I may, please, I would like to also comment on that further to David's point is that we have municipalities that we work with, and we work with hundreds of them, have found it able to make the case of sole sourcing with us because, to David's experience as well, the uniqueness of our offering. Nobody has the full strategic partnership that we do. There are some local one-off grant writers, but that has been the case that is made by other municipalities for not seeking, for example, an RFP, if I may.
Okay. One more question? Yeah. So I would just like to make a comment. So I know that the motion says that staff be authorized to enter into an agreement with Grant Match. I'm a little concerned about entering an agreement without receiving any other proposals. So it would be my recommendation to for CEO Barrett to perhaps engage with other consultants to, see what they have to say. Just get more information, and then perhaps bring it back to council at another meeting, maybe in a month, to hear your findings, and then at that point, after we see different proposals, then perhaps form an agreement with Grant Match. So we're going to turn this over to CAO Barrett then.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. To the councillor, I'm happy to go ahead and do that. I want to clarify, though, proceeding with Grant Match does preclude the organization with proceeding with any other organization thereafter. I did consult with the director of finance as well with respect to her perspective on the procurement bylaw. This doesn't fit into a procurement process because the vendor only gets paid if successful. So we're really wide open. I did communicate and consult with other municipalities that have used Grant Match as a service provider, and many of them just did a direct agreement. There's no procurement process, there's no RFP process. So that stated, one is not required, although I am happy to do that. Look, we're eager from a staff perspective to get grants submitted to bring additional revenue for this organization. So while I'm happy to hold off on signing anything with Grant Match and looking at other options, I'd say they're not mutually exclusive. So we could still proceed with Grant Match, and I could still look at other options. So I'll just make those comments that it doesn't have to be one or the other. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Any other questions from Councillor Heeman then?
Through your worship, my time at school, I had the opportunity to study food policy or economic policies for food subsidies, and they talk about the transfer efficiency of subsidies, and to see something set in the range of 5 to 10% is not common, and I think it's a small price to pay to get the tax money that we all pay to various levels of government back in our communities. And I think it's unfortunate that we have to sift, you actually need artificial intelligence to sift through all the government programs. But if that's the world we live in, I would like us to get those dollars for the residents of Thames Center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So are there any other questions, council, before we move to the motion? All right, so the motion that we have presented before us is that first of all, a presentation be received for information and that staff be authorized to enter into an agreement with Grant Match. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Smigert and Councillor Heeman. All in favor?
I just, sorry, just had a question.
Would you?
So it's generic in terms of entering into an agreement. Should we put a term on it? The resolution, whether it's 1 or 2 years based on the recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through the mayor. Let the win because subject to council agreeing with the concept, I would continue to negotiate with Michelle and to add additional parameters. I will certainly take that into consideration in those conversations. Thank you.
Okay, that being said, then we have the motion first and second on the motion. Do all in favor? All right, the motion carries then. Thank you very much. And thank you, Michelle, for your presentation.
Oh, thank you so much for your motion. And I incredibly thank you for your time because I know how valuable that is. Have a great rest of your meeting and night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
All right, then the next item on the agenda is Information Technology Services Overview by our head of IT at the County of Middlesex, Chris Bailey. Whenever you're ready, Chris.
Yeah.
We can provide some.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to council. I'm going to do a quick overview of Middlesex County IT, who we are, what we do. See some new faces around the issue. I've had an opportunity to meet you, Councillor Lockheed. We've met Councillor Crockett, so nice to meet you. Give you an overview of some Thames Center specific projects that we've worked on, and then a little bit of a cybersecurity update, and then open it up to any questions that you may have. So the IT department in Middlesex County is broken up into 3 divisions. So we have our technical services division, takes care of things like computers, servers, and security. Our business services division, who does process design and automation, and our administrative services, that takes care of ordering, asset management, and project management. We're responsible for the provision of efficient and effective IT shared services. Currently, we do provide services to 6 of our 7 local municipalities. We support over 850 users, 600 devices, and over 80 locations across Middlesex County. And last year, we received over 10,000 service desk statements. So what we do, we provide high quality, efficient, and effective services to each of the county and the local municipality service areas. We do design our programs to be delivered in a way that recognizes and respects the context of each municipality. So sharing these services is a great benefit, but we want to make sure that everyone does keep their own autonomy. Some of the things we do offer is a cybersecurity program, which includes education, detection, containment, and response, IT asset management program, IT budgets, the IT consolidation strategy and data center hosting, broadband coordination and community engagement, and digital transformation and municipal modernization. So why we do what we do? A reliable and scalable IT infrastructure is critical to the effective and efficient delivery of municipal services. We play an important role in the transformation of the county and our local municipal partners towards modern digital platforms. And municipalities do require capacity to deliver their services. And through digital transformation and business modernization, we continue to help build towards this required capacity. So next up, I'm just going to get into some of the benefits of the shared service. So starting with economies of scale, having a shared service allows us to distribute IT, hardware, software, and services across a broad spectrum of locations. Just a quick example of this is purchasing 800 copies of a piece of software, for example. It's much more affordable than purchasing 50. So that's just a very small example, but we see this every single day on things that we're buying from multiple locations instead of a single location. There's a lot of cost savings and benefit there. In terms of economies of scope, providing shared service allows for us not only to share hardware and software, but ideas. Having 6 local municipalities, Middlesex County, Middlesex London Paramedic Service, and Middlesex Library allows for partnerships and idea sharing that also results in cost and efficiency savings. If one location is looking to implement a software solution or something else, chances are someone else is, and we're able to get everybody to the table and collaborate on those ideas. Cyber security, this one is similar to the economies of scope. Should a security incident occur in another location that we support, we're able to quickly and agilely take that and then apply it to your security devices. A good example there would be if a spam email happens to come through to somebody at one of our other locations, we're then able to block that sending email address quickly across all supported locations. In terms of costing, we run the service as a cost recovery model. We are not charging an overhead on services provided. We are not looking to make money. There's no profit margin here. It's designed only to recover the cost incurred of delivering the services to Thames. Some highlights specific to some things that we've been working on in the past 12 to 18 months. Office 365 implementation is a pretty large project that we've worked on. It allows for enhanced security, collaboration, and availability of your email services, as well as Microsoft Office products. Digital transformation and automation. Thames Center recently implemented electronic accounts payable. This has been a big time saver, saves resources, a whole lot of paper, not having to print out those invoices and have them approved by hand. And it does allow for enhanced auditing and compliance mechanisms on the accounts payable side. Cybersecurity program, I'm going to touch on this a little bit more in the next slide, but over the past 12 months, we've taken a number of steps to enhance the cybersecurity posture of the municipality. And lastly, policy review and development, which is actually something coming up today in today's meeting. I've worked with staff as well as CAO Barrick on some of the policies that we're bringing forward. So a cybersecurity update, I'm not going to get into specifics about the technology we're using because this is open council, but showing this next slide, I don't think is an issue from a security perspective. It just outlines some of the things that we've been doing. Automated phishing tests, I think everybody's seen them at this point, and everybody's been very diligent about reporting those and mentioning when they come through. It really has worked to keep staff and council vigilant of potential cyber threats. Just to throw some numbers around, when we started the program at one of our supported municipalities, not you, 15% of users were clicking on our fake links. That is now below 3%. Which for me as the director of IT has helped me sleep a little bit better at night. That 15% number during the original baseline campaign was a little bit scary. So the second someone clicks that link for real, things can get bad very, very quickly. The incident response plan is a plan designed as a playbook for a cyber incident. The IT department goes through this cyber incident response plan every single year. We do a tabletop exercise, just simulating an event. We step through it, and then yearly we update it and add enhancements based off of the results for our tabletop exercise. Multi-factor authentication, something that we've recently implemented. This is a recommended technology. It's really grown exponentially across the IT space in the last 5 years. It just serves as another check and balance when you're trying to log into the system, especially remotely. That's the biggest piece. And it stops a lot of threats at the door before they get in. Something that is also new as of October last year is Security Information and Event Management, also known as SIP. So this is a shared service that monitors security events 24/7/365. The IT department has, a lot of great people. I have an awesome team under me, but the issue is that I don't have people watching computer screens 24/7/365. So everything that happens within a network on a computer, on the systems here at the office does generate log files. So this service is designed to monitor those log files. Should something bad occur, let's say at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning, the system actually automatically blocks that, reports it back to us, and then we can deal with it. Take a look. If it's not a legitimate block, then we can open it back up to make sure staff know what they need to do. Disaster recovery and business continuity, something else that we worked on last year, and this got to work closely with your department heads. basically a list of things required to get the business back up and running as quickly as possible should an incident occur. During the emergency exercise last year, which was a cyber incident, it was identified as one of the key things to get implemented to make sure that we had all the information we needed offline inside of the network should something. So I realize that was a ton of information really quickly. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Chris. I can certainly attest to how helpful your folks have been to me. Anyway, any questions from Councilor Lucky?
Through your worship, with respect to cybersecurity, do you have mandatory training with quizzes for staff?
Part of the onboarding process does include that, and through the phishing program, if someone clicks a link, you're automatically enrolled in a 30-minute cybersecurity refresher. But sorry, I will add to that as well. It is something that I want to get on everybody's radar, is that I do think yearly, at least everyone, even if they don't click the link, should be provided the opportunity to continue that training, because it is a good way just to keep people aware. And I hate to say it, but keep people a little bit scared of what can happen. So I think that's a great comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Smiley.
Yeah, I just want to applaud Chris and his team. They do an awesome job. I think this is a really good partnership between the county and Thames Center. Not only is IT getting more complex, but you guys are almost on the leading edge of being proactive, right? So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your strategic plan that was just received and adopted by council.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the councillor, or sorry, the deputy mayor. It's not a county council today. Yeah, we recently did a strategic plan. It was completed in January. It was actually through modernization funding through the province. So thank you to the province for that program. A lot of great things came across the entire county because of it. One of the big things with it was a governance review, which actually did bring up some of the policies that are coming today to council. Another piece was really looking at the service as a whole and redesigning our service desk process, which we're in the middle of doing right now. It's provided us a framework for the next 5 years. Something I'm really excited about. You know, we've always had these ideas floating around, but I was able to really consolidate those thoughts and put them on paper for us. So it's really given us a great framework. It's also really pushing the shared service itself, which we're offering. There's a lot of pieces that, you know, as I mentioned, all the economies of scope and scale, bringing things together. It's really a great way to save money and save time for all locations. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so at this point, then I'm going to ask council for consensus to move to item 10.1 on the agenda. The CAO-008-23 Information Technology Services Policy. This way we can continue any questions that we might have for Chris. So if you want to just turn it to that. So, Mr. Barrett, did you have something to say?
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the director for his presentation today, as well as the great work happening at the county. The county is the service provider for the municipality of Thames Center, and so really these policies are to adopt and mirror our service provider and our county partners who work hand in hand, certainly in many areas, but particular IT. And so these 4 policies were properly vetted and passed at the county recently. I believe there may be additional ones coming forward. We'll also be keeping an eye on to ensure we're as close as possible with respect to the single service being provided between the two organizations. So this report is here showing the updated recommended policies. It also has the current Thames Center policies. Many of them are from 2016 or 2017. So some of them stand to certainly be updated in tandem with the county. And there's 4 here altogether. I won't go into depth. We have the report in front of you, and between the director and myself, we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. All right, and so at this point, any questions on this portion? Deputy Mayor Smiger?
Yeah, not a question, just a comment that this makes sense, right? It's good to have inconsistent policies, especially when the county is a service provider. So the county has its policies, it just makes sense that their adoptability. So I thank you for bringing this forward.
So if there are no other questions, then do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion as appended to your agenda? Councillor Pocket and a seconder, Councillor Heeman, all in favor? That motion is carried. And thanks very much, Chris. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
So we're now moving on to the Committee of Adjustment, and may I have a seconder, a mover and a seconder that council adjourn its regular meeting at 6:05 p.m. in order to sit as a Committee of Adjustment under Section 45 of the Planning Act. Consider the application listed on the July 17th, 2023 agenda. Deputy Mayor Smybert, seconded by Councillor Heeman, all in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. So I will turn this over to Alana then. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. My name is Alana Cortez, and I'm a planner with the County of Middlesex, and I provide planning advisory services to Thames Center. So the purpose and effect of this application is to seek relief from the yard requirement for accessory buildings and structures to allow a proposed building accessory to a residential use to be located in a front yard, which is otherwise not permitted. So the subject property is a 40-hectare, 100-acre farm located on the west side of Fairview Road and south of Gregory Drive. The farm contains a single detached dwelling and drive shed and is used primarily for the cultivation of field crops at the front half of the farm and contains woodlands at the rear half. The dwelling is privately serviced by a well and septic system. The lands are designated agricultural and protection area and zoned agricultural and environmental protection. The applicants are proposing to construct an accessory building in the form of a shed for personal storage purposes, which is to be located in the front yard, which is prohibited according to the zoning bylaw. The accessory building is proposed to have a floor area of 25 square meters and a height of 4 meters. The applicants advise the front yard is the preferred location as the rear yard is limited in size, and beyond that, the area contains cultivated land. The side yard south of the house contains the septic system, and the side yard north of the house contains the laneway. The shed would be located approximately 61 meters from the front lot line, and the house is located approximately 71 meters from the front lot line. Planning staff have conducted our analysis where the variance was evaluated against the 4 tests of a minor variance and are satisfied that the proposed variance meets all 4 tests in that the effects of the variance can be considered minor in nature, can be considered an appropriate use of the land, and the variance maintains the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Unacceptable adverse impacts on neighboring lands are not anticipated given the significant separation distances from adjacent land uses and the setback from the front lot line. Additionally, the shed would be concealed from the road by the existing coniferous trees in the front yard that would mitigate any potential visual impacts, and the agricultural use and the main residential use will continue to be the dominant features from the road. In regards to comments received during the circulation for this application, no public comments have been received to date. No comments or concerns were identified by the drainage superintendent or the county engineer. Although not included in the report, the Ever Thames River Conservation Authority and the chief building official advised no comments or concerns. It is planning staff's recommendation that minor variance application A6-23 be approved subject to the one condition noted in the report, being that the accessory building be constructed in the general location identified on the sketch submitted with the application for the reasons outlined in the report. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Is the applicant in the room and wishes to speak to? Would you like to?
I have nothing to say.
Oh, nothing to say? Okay. All right, thank you. And I don't believe there's anyone, it is online or anything else, okay? So in that particular case, I'll ask if there are any questions from the members of the committee. No? Okay, all right. So, oh, I'm sorry.
You know, I'd just like to make the motion.
Oh, okay. So, then we now have a mover for the motion before us. And the seconder, Councillor Crockett, all in favor? All right, that motion carries. Thank you very much. At this point, then I guess we will be adjourning the Committee of Adjustment. So we'll move her into seconder to do that at 6:10 p.m. Councillor Crockett and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyberg. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. So item number 7, a zoning bylaw amendment application Z 18-23, White Pine Meadow Partnership applicant Zelinka Priamo, case care of Casey Kolchecki, agent at 2603 Dorchester Road. Mr. Bancroft.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose and effect of this application is to rezone the subject lands from the site-specific residential third density R3-8 zone to a site-specific residential third density zone to allow street and cluster townhouse dwellings to be constructed and to facilitate the development of a vacant land condominium. Just for background, the subject property shown on the map on the screen, it's located on the south side of Boardwalk Way, on the east side of Harvest Lane, and backing on to Dorchester Road. This property is approximately 9.1 acres in size, and it is a future development block that was created as part of the phase 1 of the Boardwalk at Mill Pond subdivision for medium density residential uses in the form of townhouse dwellings. Municipal services are available in the area along local streets in terms of water and sanitary sewers. These lands are also designated residential under the official plan, and as previously indicated, they are zone R3-8. Property contains a single detached dwelling and a farm building, accessible by an existing laneway off Dorchester Road, all of which are to be removed to facilitate the residential development of the lands. The developer has dedicated a 0.3 meter reserve to Middlesex County along Dorchester Road to prohibit any site access to the county road. And this would ensure all vehicular access would be off of the local streets, that being Harvest Lane and Boardwalk Way. So the applicant, they have applied for site plan approval to develop a townhouse complex consisting of 81 units, which are permitted as of right under the existing zoning, to which engineering plans have been approved in principle, pending a development agreement under preparation by our legal counsel. So of the total 81 units, there's 20 that would consist of those street facing townhouses, either on Boardwalk Way or Harvest Lane. And the balance, those 61 remaining units, they would be internal and accessible by private road network off Boardwalk Way and Harvest Lane. And so considering the applicant is now proposing to develop the land by vacant land condominium, the subject application is necessary to allow technical modifications to the existing zoning to essentially allow the land to be subdivided into condo units. It's also important to note, Your Worship, that if this was a traditional condominium, that this application would not be required, considering zoning conformity would be capable of being achieved. Also, the delegated approval authority for condominiums is the County of Middlesex. My report also outlines the site-specific provisions that are being sought, as noted in page 2 of my report. So I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and I'm satisfied that with the policy direction offered by the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and the Thames Center official plan, they all require significant development, including residential subdivisions, to occur within fully serviced settlement areas that demonstrate an efficient use of land and infrastructure, subject to appropriate forms of density. And this proposal certainly demonstrates those objectives. It's located in the settlement area of Dorchester with full municipal services available in the area. And we've got a medium density residential proposed in the form of townhouse dwellings. Furthermore, your worship, under the official plan, there's a number of criteria that are noted for the evaluation of zoning bylaw amendments. And I'm satisfied that that criteria has been met, dealing with adequacy of soils and drainage conditions to accommodate the siting of buildings, adequacy of servicing, that the road system is adequate to accommodate projected increases in traffic, along with conformity with other standards under the zoning bylaw, and also that there's adequate measures in place to prevent any adverse impacts on that the proposed use would have on neighboring lands. I also wanted to point out, your worship, again, due to the proposed change in tenure to develop the site as a vacant land condo, site-specific provisions are being requested with respect to a 4-meter rear yard depth and a 60% maximum lot coverage compared to the existing standard of 10 meters and 35% respectively. And just to reiterate, this application would not be required if using the same layout, if the lands were developed as a traditional condo. The reduced rear yard depth, it would ensure that there's adequate space for private amenity areas that would be provided on a per unit basis. And in addition to those private areas, the development also contemplates common elements outdoor amenity areas. So while the lot coverage on a per unit basis appears excessive, the overall site coverage is below the maximum permitted standard given those outdoor common amenity areas. So overall, these standards, in my opinion, are appropriate for this form of development. And as such, this proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, and the Thames Center official plan. In terms of consultation comments received from an agency perspective, the county engineers identified no comments. The Thames Valley District School Board, they have no concerns. Our drainage superintendent, no comment. Our chief building official, he notes that the property is partly within the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority's regulation limit. So a permit or a clearance letter will be required from the CA prior to the issuance of the building permit. And also demolition permits will be necessary for the removal of the existing buildings. No comments were received from the public, your worship. And so it's my recommendation that this application for zoning bylaw amendments, Z18-23, be approved in principle, and that I be given direction to prepare the necessary bylaw for council's consideration at the next regular meeting. I'm here to answer any questions, your worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Vanderkamp. Are there any questions? First of all, I'd like to, is the applicant or the agent in here who would like to speak to the issue at all?
The agent is online, your worship.
All right, go ahead.
Through you, your worship. My name is Caitlin Crowley, planner with Zelenka Priamo. I am here on behalf of Casey Kilchicki, who wasn't able to attend tonight. I just wanted to thank Mark Bancroft for his summary. He did a good job of giving an overview of the application. Essentially, we are just looking to implement this zone to support the revision in tenure to a vacant land condominium. So it is quite technical in nature. I am also available to answer any questions if necessary, but generally we agree with staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so and there's no one else in the room who wants to speak to the issue either. I go through. Okay, all right. Then in that particular case, questions from council. Councilman Crockett.
Thank you, Mary McMillan. My question will be directed to Mr. Bancroft. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on the difference between the traditional condo and the vacant land condominium proposal?
Yes, certainly. So through your worship to Councillor Crockett. So with a traditional condominium, the individual condominium unit that is owned by a property owner would essentially be the dwelling itself or inside the dwelling, in that everything outside the dwelling is owned by the condominium as a common element feature of sorts. As compared to a vacant land condominium, where the unit is actually the lot. So everything that is outside the lot, such as the private road network, the infrastructure, the common elements, amenity areas, that would be owned by the condominium.
Okay, thank you. And then just to follow up on that, so there would still be condo fees associated to living within the condo footprint?
Yeah, through your worship, I would anticipate that there would be condominium fees levied against those owners of those individual units to offset those maintenance upkeeping costs related to those common element features.
Thank you. And I just have one last question.
Certainly.
My last question here comes from just a number of comments that we've been receiving. Do you know whether or not there's going to be tree planting including in the developer's plan at this time? I guess either one of you can answer that.
Through your worship, so I mentioned earlier in my presentation the fact that there are a series of plans that have been approved and in terms of sign off and so on and so forth. As part of those plans, there's actually a comprehensive landscape plan developed by a qualified professional that shows the layout of landscaping, trees, shrubs, and that sort of thing. That will be the responsibility of the developer, from a planting standpoint as part of the overall site works.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft. I'm good.
All right, Councillor Lackey. Through your worship to Director Bancroft, with respect to the proximity of this development to the aquifer, has there been any consulting done in terms of any potential impact to the water supply?
Through your worship, I don't believe this site is within the wellhead protection area, and therefore there's no concern in that regard.
Okay, that answers your question, does it? Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else from council have any questions? Councilor Heeman.
So just to clarify that amenity that has been outlined, municipality will not be responsible for maintenance on that amenity space.
Through your worship, that is correct. This will all be privately owned.
Okay, any other questions then? Okay, so in that particular case, then if there's no further discussion. The public meeting is now closed and council can make their decision on the application. Council will consider all comments received when making its final decision on the application. So as per the motion on your agenda, may I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lockie, seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. So, so we need to adjourn the public meeting, and the time is 6:24 p.m. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Lockie and Councillor Cook. All in favor? That motion's carried. Thank you. So moving on to number 8 on the agenda, the adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on June 26, 2023 be approved as circulated. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Smybert, seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Thank you, the motion carries. The consent agenda is item number 9. Items listed under the consent agenda are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be moved for further action. I believe that Deputy Mayor Snyder speak to this.
Yes, thank you. I would like to, pull 9.11, 9.12, 9.13. I would like consideration of support of those resolutions rather than just receiving information.
Do we have a agreement on that? A mover and secondary is required. Councilor Milwaukee, secondary,
That's right. So,
you're moving it, sorry,
okay, so the motion is to support those,
to support the
Yes.
recommendation.
anyway, whatever.
Did you have a question, Councilor Reed? No. All right, so we have a mover. Councilor Lucky, seconder. Deputy Mayor Snyder. Okay, all in favor? Thank you, that passes. So then the consent agenda then is item number 9.1 through 9.10. And we can have a mover and a seconder for those particular items. Councilor Heeman and Councilor Lucky. Thank you very much. Motion carries. Reports of departments. We have dealt with item number 10.1. So we are moving on to 10.2, Environmental Advisory Committee, and I believe our clerk is taking this. Thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to add in there, earlier when we were speaking about some of the upcoming events, I just pulled up the dates. So I wanted to speak that in before we got into the next one.
Okay, when I make my report, you want to squeeze it in then?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, all right, that's good. Okay. Ms. Nichols.
Good evening, council. At the June 12th meeting, council requested staff to research and develop terms of reference for the Environmental Advisory Committee. The terms of reference are attached to the agenda for council's consideration and were developed with input from senior management team, being consistent with other committees and structure and in accordance with existing procedural bylaw. This report recommends adopting terms of reference for the Environmental Advisory Committee, as well as appointing members of council and directing staff to advertise key committee appointments. Council also requested that staff identify groups that should be involved with this committee. And some have been identified in the report. If council has any questions, I can answer them.
Okay, so any questions from council on this particular issue? None at all? Okay then. Then may I have a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion? Councilor Lucky, seconded by Councilor Heeman. All in favor? Okay. Oh, we need that. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll do that. Separate motion that there be 2 council members appointed to this particular advisory committee. How are you volunteering?
No, I nominate Councilor Lucky.
Okay. All right, anyone else? It's just this bonus.
I would nominate Councillor Beeman.
Oh. Are you agreeable?
I accept my nomination.
And Councillor Newman? Okay, then. All right, then. So a mover and a seconder for the appointments then. Deputy Mayor Sniper and seconded by Councillor Crockett. And all in favor. Okay. Did I finish the one on property? Okay. The next item on the agenda is 10.3 PDS-044-23. Application for zoning bylaw amendment Z13-23. Otis Properties Limited applicant. MHBC Planning, care of Oz Kamal agent, 2300 Dorchester Road. And Mr. Bancroft, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose and effect of this application is to rezone the subject lands to permit additional uses to the existing zoning and to allow site specific provisions, including a reduced interior side yard. So this report provides a summary of the agency and public comments received, along with an evaluation of the subject application, considering this matter was considered by council through a public meeting this past June 26th to solicit community feedback. So in terms of background, as shown on the screen, the subject property, it's the Shoppers Drug Mart Plaza, located here in Dorchester on the south side of Byron Ave and on the east side of Dorchester Road or County Road 32. So this site has municipal water and sanitary sewers available. It's also designated and zoned for commercial purposes. And lastly, I think it's important to note out that the subject lands are just located outside of the Dorchester wellhead protection area as identified in the municipality's official plan. So the applicant has applied to rezone the subject lands to intensify the commercial development of the lands, to permit a food store along with a drive-through restaurant as additional permitted uses to the current zoning. Also being requested a reduced interior side yard width of 3 meters adjacent to a residential or future development zone compared to the current standard of 7.5 meters, along with to allow a stormwater management facility within required areas for landscaped open space and or planting strips, which are otherwise prohibited. I should point out, Your Worship, that based on concerns that were raised during the public consultation process and subsequent discussions with staff, the applicant has amended their application with respect to a modified requested interior side yard of 6 meters. So rather than the original request of 3 meters, it is now to be increased to 6 meters, which would be 1.5 meters less than the required standard. I should also note that appended to my report is a revised conceptual site plan showing the layout of the site, should this rezoning be approved, including that modified side yard request, to which site plan approval will be required to allow this additional development to proceed. And also just to recap, through an order issued by the Ontario Municipal Board back in 2006, it allowed those additional uses, that being the food store and sorry, my computer just froze. The food store, along with the grocery store, they were permitted as of right by the board order, but inadvertently omitted when the municipality passed a new comprehensive zoning bylaw in the fall of that year. So this amendment simply seeks to reintroduce those uses again, which were inadvertently omitted. I've connected my analysis, Your Worship, as noted in my report, and through provincial policy, the County of Middlesex official plan, and the Thames Center official plan. They all support commercial activities in commercial areas. And of course, these lands are located within a designated commercial area, the settlement area of Dorchester, which aligns with that policy direction. Also, as noted in the official plan, it includes criteria for the evaluation of zoning bylaw amendments, all of which have been satisfied, or they are capable of being satisfied through the site plan approval process. The one criteria that is important to note is the one that pertains to Adequate measures will be taken to alleviate or prevent any adverse effects that the proposed use may possibly have on adjacent uses. And that modified side yard of 6 meters compared to the required standard of 7.5 meters would allow, in my opinion, sufficient space for a planting buffer to ensure compatibility with future residential uses to the east. Again, to be implemented through site plan approval. In terms of agency comments, there were no issues identified in the circulation of the application from an agency standpoint, and that includes comments from the county engineer, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and our director of public works. In terms of public comments received, the only comment that we did receive was from Monteith Brown Planning Consultants on behalf of Sitton Properties, being the developer of the adjacent Hawthorne Park draft plan approved subdivision. They had concerns with the requested interior side yard width of 3 meters, which has now been increased, doubled in size to 6 meters. And also within my report, it provides an excerpt of the public meeting of municipal council that was held last month, and that no issues were identified at that public meeting. So it is my recommendation, Your Worship, as outlined in my report, that this application for zoning bylaw amendment be approved and that the implementing bylaw be passed by council. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Council questions. Mr. Green.
For you, Your Worship, just a comment that I do think the addition of the extra 3 feet is a good addition. When you looked at the previous drawing, it was pretty close to the neighbor's backyard there, and you can put some trees up, but you can't stop the smell of those French fries. So I think that extra 3 meters will help them walk them off in the long term. It's a good addition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Oh, in that case, then do I have a mover for the recommended motion for approval as appended to the agenda along with the second? Moved by Councilor Crawford and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smiver, and all in favor? All right, thanks very much. The motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda, the Thorndale pedestrian crossover upgrade considerations. 10.4, Mr. Craven.
Thank you, Worship. Before you is Council Report PWTS 003-23. That's Thorndale pedestrian crossover upgrade consideration. Purpose of this report is to provide council with an update and options for its consideration on those crossover locations and upgrades on King Street in Thorndale. This is a response to the June 26th motion that was passed for Thorndale Road pending an agreement on site between the county and Thames and municipality. The report here. Thanks, Shannon. We put an overview on King Street there. So the county and the municipality here looked at the King Street corridor. It was inspected, and they found the following, or we found the following potential locations for crossovers. In the report there, and I apologize, the report has I guess it's lost part of the map was cut off, but the three crossovers. First one is the existing right at the post office there in King Street. That's proposed to be upgraded to signage to modify a school crossing, was illustrated in the report as on the monitor there. The second one is the Brooker Trail, Aspen Circle to the west. That's proposed to again to put a painted crosswalk there with signage, whatnot too. And the third one is to the east, and that would be at the Lions Lane and Shirley Street intersection there, just with signage and painted crosswalk. Those are the 3 proposed locations that the county and the municipality deemed to be most appropriate there for crossings. More importantly, I guess the Burker Trail crossing to the west That's the proposed lit crosswalk. Once we go from rural cross section to an urban cross section here, which is proposed to be in the 2024 budget for deliberation for just the design work. If you have any questions, we have to answer them.
Thanks. Any questions from council on this item? So in that particular case, do we have a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion? And we're going to be addressing your motion and number 12, or is it appropriate to do it now? We can do it now. Okay.
Yeah, just a comment before we put in the motion. I do agree with the Booker Trail and Aspen Crescent intersection as being the ideal future site for a crosswalk with lights, because on the west end of town, you do have people coming in at a high rate of speed. We do see the most intensive future development occurring in that area, especially in the Rosewood subdivision. There is a lot of land works already in process, and I think there will be a lot of young families moving in and needing a access point to get to school. So yeah, I think the west end is preferable. We do have the speed radar sign on the east end, and I think that helps calm traffic. With the addition of these two other, with the addition of the crossing point at Shirley and Lions Lane, I think that also will help mitigate traffic in the east end. So I do see these new sign crossings as an improvement. I would still like to see the lighted sign happen as soon as possible. And you know, we got to work with the county to achieve that. So I would propose the motion as follows. That staff be directed to proceed with the installation of modified school crossings consisting of pavement markings and signs at all three King Street locations identified in this report, and that as per council's June 26th, 2023 resolution on this matter, the King Street at Booker Trail intersection in Thorndale be selected as the site for the upgraded installation of a push button pedestrian crossover with lights as soon as possible, and that the detailed design work to upgrade King Street in Thorndale from rural to urban cross section, complete with sidewalks and street illumination, be added as part of the 2024 budget deliberations, and that this resolution be circulated to the Middlesex County Council.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, and any discussion? Councilor Lucky, you're moving the motion?
Sorry.
Oh, are you, I'm sorry, you're moving your second. Sorry, yes. Any discussion before we move on? Deputy Mayor Snyder?
Thank you. I just had a question. I'm just looking at staff just to see. I'm assuming that this has been discussed with staff and there are no concerns with the proposed resolution.
Your worship, staff has no concerns.
I just have done one other question. So does Thames Center, do we share in the detailed route design costs? Or does our share come up and we actually put those capital projects or works?
Your worship, it'll be cost sharing. The county will share a portion of, say, storm sewers and the road works and whatnot too. So there will be a portion got to the county for the design.
Councilor Hayner?
Thank you, Your Worship. To Director Craven, I just wanted to to check, so if we're doing the design work is, and I understand this is in partnership with Middlesex County, does that, what would your estimation be of the timeline for completion, assuming that, that funding is realized at the county?
Your worship, I'd have to speak with the county engineer as far as the design, what the length of time for that. We'd like to try to hit the construction window, obviously in the spring there. We'd like to hit that. I'd have to refer that to the county engineer for an answer.
Councillor Hume.
Thank you, Your Worship. As a follow-up to that, would we need to fund construction as well, or is that a part of the design process, or is that part borne by the community?
That'd be cost shared as well. I believe the two would be separate. There'd be design would be one tender, and then construction would be a second.
So, given that, would it be pertinent to add the construction as well? So that we can have the quote ready for the 2024 budget? And it'd still have to pass budget at that time.
Sorry, I'll need a little guidance on this one.
And now just a comment, I think this will really be up to the approval of the county, right? So we can't come tie the hands of the county until, I guess, that design has been done. We know what the costs are, and deliberations have been finalized for that 2024 budget.
Yes, I'm not proposing tying the county's hands, and it's just being proactive and being prepared so that we can put the best foot forward in collaboration with the county. So I'm guessing the answer is no, because we need the design work in order to secure the quote.
That would be my understanding. That it'll be a kind of a little work in progress to get to that particular point, but the basics of the motion is that we're going to go ahead with it if this passes, and we'll be examining it as part of the 2024 budget, but we need information from the county, right? Is that my understanding, Director Craven?
To your worship, yes, that's how I see it.
Councillor Hayman, you're anything positive?
Yeah, just in discussions with Director Training, he seemed to indicate that they were already undertaking the design work. So, and that could be completed within the reasonable future, so that we could potentially draft or could quote a construction plan.
And the CAO has something to say about this.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for that. That's accurate with respect to the county intending to start the design work later this year. We're having to work with them on that. We're not sure if that design work would be completed in time, certainly for a Thames Center budget. It may be completed in time for the county's budget. They're usually do their budget a little bit later. So I think, to Deputy Mayor's point, I think it's just a timing consideration. It could be done in time for the county budget process. It may not be done in time for Thames Center. Now, that stated, if Thames Center Council approves its budget in December, the county approves it with a design later on in February, March, April, inclusive of this project, we, from a Thames Center staff perspective, can always bring back a budget amendment or another item to work in tandem with the county at that time when the information is available. That helps.
Does that satisfy the question?
Yeah, that's clear. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have the motion in front of us. We're in something there. So are all in favor of this motion? Okay. None opposed, so the motion carries. Thank you. Right, the next one we have is for Venice Farms Limited, PWDR-009-23. Item number 10.5 on your agenda, drainage superintendent, is he coming in?
Sounds great.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Recently, we've received a request from the Vaness Farms Limited to improve drainage to their existing agricultural lands. Appointing an engineer to this will help this landowner achieve their goals, and I can answer any questions you might have relating to this.
All right, any questions from council? None. Okay then. So then do I have a mover and a seconder for the motion as appended to the agenda? Deputy Mayor Smyber and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, I think it's PWDR 010-23 Foster Farms Inc. Request for drainage improvement. The drainage superintendent again, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So recently, the O'Reilly drain had been not functioning exactly to the standard it was originally constructed. And after some investigation, it was found that roughly 250 meters of this tiled system was in poor repair. And I presented with the impacted landowners an option to make these repairs as required. At that time, a landowner impacted by this had decided that they would prefer to just improve the entire late 1950s drainage system rather than spend the money it was going to take to make these repairs. And that's what's driving this request for drainage improvement. And I can help answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this issue? None at all? Okay then. Well, we have the motion is before us. So do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lockie and Deputy Mayor Smyber. All in favor? That motion carries. Thanks very much, Travis.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the Byron Avenue bicycle lane parking and Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you report PWTS -00223 Byron Ave bicycle lane parking. The reason behind this report is there's currently no signage that was ever included to prohibit parking on this bike lane. Drivers aren't aware of this designation and staff are unable to keep it clear through education and enforcement. It's anticipated that this restriction of parking will provide an additional safety factor for cyclists in the area, as well as aid in winter maintenance operations. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Smyber.
Just a question. I know it's been some time since those lanes have been there. I'm just wondering how we're going to communicate that to the residents. Will there be a direct letter that we dropped off?
I do, Worship. That would be my intent, just to let the homeowners know fronting that Byron Ave lane. That this is coming.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? And I'm guessing then Director Craven, it would probably be posted as well on the municipal website as well, so that people have a general information as a notice.
Yeah, that's already been done, or that's already anticipated. That's great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. All right, so the member and the second Deputy Mayor Smyber, Councillor Rocky, all in favor? Motion carries. Thanks very much. Thorndale Dog Park update, item number 10.8 on your agenda. Director of Community Services and Facilities, online?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Through you, Your Worship, you have before you report number TDPAHC 001-23 regarding the Thorndale Dog Park. At the June 20th meeting of the Thorndale Dog Park Ad Hoc Committee, after careful review of 5 potential sites, this committee unanimously agreed to recommend the municipal property found at the corner of Gerald Parkway and Missouri Road, as outlined within this report and as you can see on the screen in front of you. One correction to my report, the buffer between the proposed dog park and the property to the north, which is the Rosewood subdivision, will actually be a 50-foot buffer, not 30 feet. So an extra buffer, which is great. As mentioned in the report, this budget was set before a site had been selected. So the extra costs that are associated with developing the parking will result in not having sufficient budget for some of the extras that we would have otherwise normally included, those being benches, garbage cans, and trees. However, we can instead repurpose some existing supplies from other areas to provide to this new site. The committee also recommends having the same donor recognition levels as was set previously for the Dorchester Dog Park for consistency. As a result, the recommendations for this report are that report number TDPAHC001-23 be received for information, and that council approve locating the new Thorndale Dog Park at the municipally owned property on the corner of Missouri Road and Gerald Parkway as specified in this report, and that the donor recognition program for the Thorndale Dog Park be the same as the program used for the Dorchester Dog Park as noted in this report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any questions from council on this particular item? Councillor Heeman?
Just a comment, and thank you, Steve, for joining us and interrupting your scheduled holidays. And I know this has been an anticipated project for the community, so thank you for being here to move this forward. Just some context. I think this is a good location as it's somewhat isolated from the majority of the community, so you're not going to have loud barking disturbing one community or another, and the significant setback protects Rosewood as well. It does seem to be a little bit outside of the community, but in fact it is on a scheduled walking trail network. So I think that's something that it would be good to increase the connectivity to the existing trail network sometime in the future to get the most out of it for the community and to get that access to the old part of town, Foxborough and Rosewood as well. So and just as a further comment, we did allow for a lot of parking because it is scheduled to be on the trailhead that does connect over to Fanshawe conservation area. So it should be well situated within the future plans. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments from the members of council? Deputy Mayor Snyder?
Just to add on to what Councilor Heeman said, I congratulate the committee members. They worked hard at finding a location. It wasn't an easy process. We don't own a lot of land, which kind of provided some obstacles and challenges for this committee, but I'm happy to see that we did find a spot, and I want to thank staff too, especially Director of Public Services for taking a look at this area so that we can use it as our future work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, then do I have a mover and a seconder for this motion? Deputy Mayor Smyber and Councilor Heeman. All in favor? Motion carries. Right. At this point, I have a brief report on some activities over the past month. Since my last report, I had the distinct honor of attending graduation ceremonies at both North Dorchester Secondary School and North Dorchester Public School. Graduation ceremonies at which it was my honor to hand out some awards to some very deserving students. Then later, along with Kara Finn and her associates from Economic Development for the county, myself, CAO Bear, and Councillor Lucky, who is an employee. We were treated to a tour of AES Pipe in Thorndale to learn more about individual businesses in Thames Centre that are not always front and center in people's minds. This is an amazing facility. I was very impressed, and uses plastic recycling to engineer drainage piping. And this is also something that going forward, we plan to do a little bit more of, an introduction to business, to members of council in concert with economic development through the County of Middlesex. It's a great opportunity for us to get to know our business neighbors. Then along with my husband, we were honored to attend the 150th anniversary of the Mount Olivet Lodge in Thorndale, an amazing milestone when you consider this organization has been around for 150 years. Most don't operate that long. So that was a really nice evening. And then everybody in the community was so excited on this past July 13th to be at the opening of the and ribbon cutting at the Foodland. I think a great cheer went up. It could be heard in London, I'm sure. We're also glad to have them back in town and welcome them and wish them lots of success going forward. I think that's all that I have, and Councillor Rocket would like to add.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me kind of wrap up your comments here. So just further to my announcement at the beginning of the meeting, I just wanted to reiterate that we are having a movie night in the park. Dorchester is set for Saturday, August 12th, and the Super Mario Brothers will be playing. And Friday, August 25th, we'll be in Harrietsville with the movie The Bad Guys. And once again, we will be hosting Bridge Fest on Saturday, September 9th. So you can add all of those to your calendars.
Thanks very much. Okay. Then the next is a notice of motion. Mr. Councillor Heeman.
Thank you. If I can motivate this before reading it, I think it's come to my attention that we have a plan development proposal coming towards the council at our next meeting, and it's gathering a lot of concerns, and I think these are concerns that were shared the first time it came towards council, and I think this is somewhat of a unique situation, as the proposed development areas north of the Thames River in Dorchester are not serviced. And I believe this is raising a number of questions and concerns to residents in that part of Dorchester, as with the exception of a few residents on Catherine Street, many have their own septic systems. And as we cannot proceed with any developments or subdivisions without the potential of hooking up to municipal services, this raises a question as to how, when, and how much. For that reason, I would propose that staff be directed to conduct an open house along with project proponents respecting the large planning applications north of the Thames River within the municipality of Thames Centre boundaries.
Thank you. A seconder for that motion and some discussion. Go ahead.
Through the chair, since this is a notice of motion, we're going to have a motion to allow consideration of this tonight. So what I need is a mover and seconder for the following motion. That the notice of motion be considered without previous notice. And that's how we'll start for this motion to be considered. So is there a mover for that?
Does it require 2/3?
Yes, and it does require 2/3 vote. And if 2/3 is not obtained, it would go to the next. To be voted. there a move for this motion? So lucky. All in favor? Two-thirds. Carried.
So the notice of motion is that staff be directed to conduct an open house along with the project components respecting the large planning applications north of the Thames River within the municipality of Thames Centre boundaries. I'll move her into second. Councillor Human and Councillor, I'm sorry, Councillor Melky. All in favor?
Sorry, can we ask questions?
Certainly.
So I understand that there's lots of questions with respect to these development proposals. We hear alluding to the fact that the Auburn development is coming up in August. What I like about those meetings is really the developers meeting in terms of answering the questions, you know, that are posed by the residents. I just don't want to set up an expectation that by having this meeting, that our staff have all the answers to all of the anticipated questions. I just don't want to put staff on the spot like that. And I don't know if even when the developers are in that same room, that they'll have the answers to some of those questions either. So I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to have a meeting. I mean, I think the more meetings that we can have, obviously, with, you know, the residents, to help, you know, get those questions answered is a good thing. My concern is that I don't want to set the expectation that staff will be able to answer all of those questions, because to a certain extent, those developments are outside of staff's control.
Any other comments? Councillor Crockett.
I guess kind of on the lines of that is my concerns as well, were that we wouldn't have all of the answers yet because the proposal isn't coming forward until August. So with that, I was wondering whether there should be a date put on the motion, whether that open house should be, whether you're anticipating that open house should be put in place before the August meeting or afterwards, or I don't know, some sort of plan that we can put a timeline in place for that.
Councillor Heeman.
Yeah, I would expect that staff would bring a report back for the next meeting suggesting an appropriate time and place. And I think, you know, there needs to be some consultation with those developers on in terms of their schedule along with our own staff's requirements. So yeah, I do agree that a date would be pertinent. I think it's important to have the hearing on the 14th, and I don't want to get in the way of that because it is a legislative process as well. But I guess to address Deputy Mayor Smyerberg's comments, I can see that we may not have all the answers, but I think having a forum where you can have free discussion with our experts, they may not have all the answers, but they are the experts in this area. And I think they have experience implementing infrastructure systems in the past that will be similar to this, and they have an understanding of the process in which they occurred. And I think that's something that it's not required by the planning process to communicate infrastructure timetables and calculations and whatnot. So I think there's a gap between our two legislative requirements for planning and for public works. And I think this would provide a forum to allow our experts to shine and to get some facts out there, because in the absence of answers, there is misinformation and there's fear. And I think we should try and stand up to that and provide an opportunity for good information, along with having open doors to allow the community to look at the whole situation.
Thank you.
Councillor Lucky.
I have a further comment as well. I think aside from giving the opportunity for residents to speak to staff, I personally would want to be there as representative for my ward. So if residents have concerns, they want to talk to council about their concerns, I think it provides a good opportunity.
Well, I think we've been through the motion.
We have a mover and a seconder, however, it has been amended a little bit by Councillor Hooman, that staff bring back a report to the next meeting with dates, is that correct?
I don't see a need because I think it's giving direction, and so how that direction is received, that I don't think needs additional interpretation at this point.
Okay, then, council will be kept informed about what's going on. So the motion is standing as printed in front of you. And we have a mover and a seconder, and we voted. All in favor? Okay, the motion then carries. I believe it was mine. Okay, then new business, any new business? That's nothing at all. Okay, we move on to bylaws. So the motion is that bylaws 72-2023 through 77-2023 be adopted as presented. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Sniper, and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? And motion carries. And just at this moment, because we're going to be going into closed session and video streaming will end, just wanted to announce that the next meeting will be on Monday, August the 14th at 5 p.m. here in the council chambers, followed by another one in September, also on Monday, September the 11th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Right. So I need someone to move adjournment of the regular scheduled meeting. Councilor Neiman, and the second. All in favor?